Yesterday we have completed the logout login functionality and registration. Now we'll see how to use code splitting. So code splitting is used to improve performance of the application. So if you see right now, if I go to network tab, then click on JS, and if I refresh the page, you can see all the files. So I have this search expense page, add expense page, then profile page. All these pages are loaded initial itself. So 20 KB of this. So if I go to search expense, you can see 31 KB of JavaScript file, then 1 KB of CSS file is loaded. So I have just not logged in yet to the application, and still this all the data is loaded. So if your application is larger, it will take a lot of time to load the screen. So you will see some blank screen while the data is getting loaded, because until JavaScript is executed, you will not be able to click anywhere. So as your application grows, it will take some time to load the application. So you can use code splitting, or it's also known as lazy loading. So only when you are on particular component, then only you will load that particular component, all the data related to that particular component. So let's say if you have some website where you have Google Map. So on contact page, you are displaying some Google Map. And for displaying that, you need to have some Google Map library. You need to import that. And if I am on the home page and you never go to the contact page, there is no point in loading that Google Map library. So you are increasing your load time. So it will take some time to load your application. So the best way to optimize performance of your application is using lazy loading. So we'll see how to use lazy loading. It's very simple. So ES11 added dynamic import. So let me show you. JavaScript, just like ES6, there is ES6, 7, 8, 9. There is ES11 where they have added dynamic import. So if you see, we have imports at the top. So these imports always need to be at the top. You cannot put these imports conditionally. So if I say if true, then let's say I want to import this. So if you add this, you can see you are getting error. Import declaration can only be used at top level. So you cannot have any of the import conditionally. So you cannot load any of the file conditionally. So to fix this, ES11 added import syntax. So you just provide the path, just like a function. You provide path, and this will return a promise. So you can attach dot then, and result will be the data of this particular file. So whatever content you have, so you will get that data, and you will be able to conditionally load that file. So this is possible with ES11 with dynamic import syntax. So React makes it really easy by improving this. So in React, you can use react.lazy. So there is a lazy function. And for this function, you can pass a function, another function, and here you can import this, use this import syntax. So now this import will return a promise. So that you are passing to lazy. Now, whatever content you have in this file, that will be, you will get, and you can store that in a variable. So I don't want to do this for constant file. So what files we want? We want all these files which are route related files. So all these are route related files. So if you are using routing, only one component is loaded at a time. So if you see routes, so inside it, you can see you only have login component. So if I go to mike@example.com, so now you can see you have layout now, layout sidebar. Then you have this expense list component. So only one component is loaded at a time. So you are specifying that as a route here, browser router. So initially slash, so here you are rendering the expense. So even though only one component is rendered at a time, it does not mean that JavaScript is loaded for only for that component. So entire application JavaScript is loaded at the same time. So that's why we use lazy loading. So all these components that we are using as a route, we can use lazy loading. So I can say add expense equal to react.lazy, pass this function, and use the same URL. So I can use import. Now this is exactly same as this add expense. So without this, let me show you. Go to network, and if I search here, and if I search for add expense, you can see add expense page is loaded. So JavaScript is loaded. But now I will use this syntax. I will comment out this. and refresh this. Now you can see add expense is not loaded. So when you are not on that particular component, that component is not displayed on the screen. That JavaScript, CSS, whatever you have, that will not be loaded. So only when I click on add expense, you can see now add expense page is loaded. So then only you will get that add expense page. So here you are missing something, so I will tell you, but only when you are having that particular component, when you are displaying, then only this component will be displayed. Now, while the component is getting loaded, you need to display some fallback UI. What you should display. So this, for that, you can wrap everything in a react.suspense. So this is known as react suspense boundary. Then you can put everything in between. So this is opening closing tag, and in between you add your content. Now for this, you can provide a fallback prop. Here you need to specify what should be displayed while the page or component is getting loaded. So I can just say loading. Class name equal to load. Now you will not see that error, you can see. So if I refresh this page, you can see loading is displayed. So while that component is getting loaded, you will see that loading message that you have added. So we have already added classes, so it's formatted correctly. But you can see only add expense page is loaded now. If I search for search expense, this is loaded. Yeah, because we have not added lazy loading for that. So for now, if I am on dashboard page, let's say refresh dashboard, and if I search for add expense, you can see add expense is not loaded because I have not gone to that particular component. So only when you are on that component, then it will be loaded. Now it will always be there, so you will not see loading again. So when I click again, you can see it's immediate. You will not see loading because that page is already loaded. But only when you are loading it first time, you will see that loading. So if I refresh this, you will see this loading, then the content is loaded. So now I can do the same for all other routes. So we have done for add expense, we can do edit expense. And comment this. Search expenses. Expense. Now we have done for all of the component. Profile route is wrong. Profile.
Private route.
Private route. I have given router. Should be router, not router. So now only add expense page is loaded. If I search for search expense, you can see it's not loaded. Even profile is not loaded. Then expense list, that is also not loaded. So only pages or components related to add expense. So if I search for expense form and add expense, these are loaded. Now if I go to dashboard, now expense list and table are loaded. Now if I go back, it's immediate. So here it's immediate because it's already loaded. Now the search expense, I have not loaded it. So when I click, you can see the loading is there. And then you will have search expense here. So search expense page is not loading. Let's check. Where is the route? Here. So we have private route. Here we have children is logged in. So we are passing is logged in prop, and here we are not passing. So only if you are logged in, then only you will be able to see that. Yes, now it's working. So now only search expense is loaded, add expense is not loaded. Now profile, search expense, everything now loaded. So now if I refresh the login page, none of the other pages are loaded. So add expense not loaded, search expense not loaded. So this is better for performance reason. So you should always use if this lazy loading. So only if those components are loaded, then only you will load that JavaScript CSS file. So I will remove these imports. You can see the file is getting larger just because of the import. So you can create separate file, dynamic imports dot js, js, just js. These are no, it's React code. So I can move all of these to here. I will export all of these with the named export. So you can see we are using react.lazy everywhere. So you can also, so by default, you need to import this React like this. But instead of using this all the time, react.lazy, you can also import that lazy as a named export. Now you don't need this react.everywhere. You can just use lazy and this will exactly work. Now here we need to import those components, layout, why we are not loading that? It's lazily. This should also be lazy. This and import this. Make sure you are importing from dynamic import and not those individual imports. Expense list from dynamic import, login from dynamic import. We have loaded everything. So you can see on login also you see this loading. Until the page is loaded, we have all these imports at the top. Now the file is smaller. So that's how you can use dynamic import or lazy loading to improve performance of your application.
And also this lazy loading is usually used, I mean, when there are,
It's always good to use. So even if it's application smaller, so depending on how many packages, external libraries you are using, your application size will increase. So it will go to MB, 1 MB, 2 MB. But if you are using lazy loading, so it will be loaded faster. So I am not logged in yet, or if I am just browsing the home page. So I don't need to see any other pages loaded JavaScript files. So this will be used every application. You should use this if you want to improve your performance of the application.
so it is good practice to always use.
Yes, always use this. It's a good practice.
One more question. Okay, so it will be used only in router, like wherever we are using
No,
router.
anywhere. So you can import this anywhere. They're not just for routes. Any component you can use. So if you are using that contact manager app where we don't have routing, so you can directly display this particular, let's say, contact list. Then we have add contact.
Right.
These components also you can display use lazy loading. So only when you are on that particular component, then that JavaScript will be loaded.
Okay.
And everything should be wrapped under that React
suspense.
suspense.
Yes.
Where whenever we are using
lazy.
I mean, okay.
So this is mandatory. Without this, it will not load those components lazy.
And what are the other I mean arguments we can say for this, like
Fallback is the only one, which
only
is
one.
yes.
Okay.
You can
Which
check the
will initially
documentation. You see there is children and key also. So these are the extra properties you can pass. But this is the only one which is mostly used.
Okay.
Yes. So this is all about lazy loading. There is also suspense boundary, error boundary that I have already explained in a video. You should watch that. So how to avoid production errors on your React application, breaking your React application on production. It's a small video, but it's extra library that you need to use. How to correctly handle errors. So for this, you need to use the React error boundary. It's very easy to use. If you go to GitHub source code, the video is also small and you will be able to easily understand what it's doing. 6 minutes video.
So as you might know, when you deploy your React application,
So inside src package.json, you need to install a React error boundary, and then you can use that in main here, just like what we have done for provider, what we do, like any context provider we do. So we wrap every component, entire application in error boundary, and we pass this. There is also fallback prop you can use to display that loading message or error message, but instead you can also use fallback component, so that will display that error message. So anytime any type of error happens in your application and you are displaying blank page, and displaying blank page is not good user experience. Like you are in production, application is on production, you are getting blank screen. That is not good behavior. So you can avoid that displaying blank page using this error boundary. So anytime blank page is displayed, your error page will be displayed, and inside this error page you are displaying something which will help user to understand what has happened. So here you are displaying some image, page not found some image. Then you will also see this message and button, refresh page. So whenever you refresh this, all the errors on your console will be cleared out. So you can see this is the error page. So anytime error happens, you will always see this error page. You have this error message, refresh page. So right now you can see there are errors in the console.
so if I
But if I click on refresh, you will be redirected to home page and all the errors in the console are cleared out. So this is the best practice if you are using, if you are using any React application and you have deployed to React application production. So it's always good to use React boundary. So you never know when error might happen. So there might be some edge case which you have not handled. So you might not have added some empty fallback. So if you are destructuring object and that object does not exist, we usually add fallback of empty. But if you forgot to add that, then your application will break and you will see blank page. So you can avoid that using this React suspense boundary, error boundary. So this is suspense boundary, and that was error boundary. So this is you are displaying fallback while loading message while the component is getting loaded.
So is there any sequence, Yogesh, about, I mean, context provider, browser, router, this suspense and this error? So how we should wrap this whenever using in the app, or
you can wrap anywhere. So there is no sequence.
just children should be under.
Yeah. So app component, it should be wrapped anywhere. So you can add error boundary. Above that, you can add that app context provider. Anywhere you can wrap this. So this React.suspense you can wrap above that. It does not matter.
Okay, sure.
So you can have multiple context also. So we have seen in the contact.
Yes, theme and contact.
Yes. So you can wrap multiple context also, one below the other.
Okay. So all these three, like suspense, browser, router, and error, there is no any sequence. Just children should be under.
Yes.
Inside that. Okay.
Yes. So your component should be children in those components.
Okay.
So these are components. So when you use first capital letter, just like a tag, that is a component from React error boundary.
So when we as showing our error message, we have used that component for the page display. So instead we can use this error boundary, right?
Yes. So anytime error happens, you will not see blank page and errors in the console. So errors will be displayed in the console, but you will not see blank page. Instead, you will get this page automatically whenever there is some error.
Okay.
The user will know that there is some error and he can click on refresh page and you will redirect to home page. So all errors will be cleared out. You can see this is very popular weekly downloads. So React, React documentation also recommends using this. So you can see you can also use fallback. So display something. but just displaying message instead of blank screen does not help. So you can create a separate component and that you can display, so it will be displayed better. So
Okay.
that's it for this dynamic import.